this tutorial is going to be very simple. It's going to be focusing on control node, hbox, and a vbox. And the reason why we kind of be focusing on these three main controls is because they allow you to do most of the things that you need while making UI. It also makes sure that your UI doesn't get mixed up, it doesn't get all over the place. So without further ado, let's start away. So the first one would be control node. Control node is what I would call the biggest container. Put inside of it the hboxes, the vboxes, the other types of containers. Just shows you where you want to do stuff. For me, I want this control node to be a full rect, so it's completely all over the screen. And then I can play around with where I want to place my vbox or my hbox. And generally, I'm going to be placing this top corner left side, and this one's going to be top right side. And this is just to show you guys what we're working. And then after this, we're going to be working a little bit more about theming and UI design and a little bit about color picking as well. So now, inside of hbox and inside of a vbox, inside of hboxes, I usually would rather have smaller y-axis, obviously bigger x-axis. And the reason is if we, let's say for example, we had a texture rect here, 64. And the thing is, this one is going to be impacted by how long is the hbox. So we have to set the usual to 64. And then we have to reset this. And now when you come back this, now it looks like a square. So it's very important that you keep in mind that whatever control node you add inside of an hbox, or a vbox in fact, is completely impacted by the container itself. And you can't make this smaller. So that's kind of a little bit of an issue. So that's why when you're working with an hbox, you have to be very careful with your y-axis. Because while the x you can move it around, so if I come here, I can make this 32, but I can't really make this. For example, you want to work on this and you want to make it 32, but you could technically make this 64. Well, it is set as a minimum as 64, but you can't make it 32. So you can make it bigger, but you can't make it smaller. So you can make it 128. It can be extended, but it can't really be minimized. And so it's kind of important to make sure that whatever custom minimum you're putting the parent as, the vbox or the hbox, is the standard you want for your elements inside of it. So in here, it's going to be 64 by 64. So we have to make this 64. And this is automatically 64, so even if I put 32 here, it's not going to change. And but the only thing that we could actually play with is the axis, because this is an hash box. It's a horizontal box. And it's the opposite for a vertical box. So inside of vertical box, if we add a texture rect, and let's see, this one is 100 by 200. So if I come to this guy and I set the minimum to 240, it can extend, but I can't make this 100. The minimum is 200 for it. But we could play around with the y-axis, and let's say we give it 64 or 128. It's completely up to us. And that's like the main points and kind of something to keep in mind while you're working with an hbox or a vbox. So that was a fast crash course on control node, hbox, and vbox. And we could work on a little bit of more theming. So I'm going to be adding a label inside of this, because these are kind of the main stuff that we see inside of games. And I'm going to customize this to be minimum by 64, because I like it to be like that. And then this one, I would say my font would be 40. And let's add some words in here. Subscribe, subscribe. And then inside of this, we say enter. Now, my suggestion would be to always add a theming to the main node, but it really depends on the cases you want to use and like what kind of stuff you want to make. But for me, oh, also I'm going to be adding another button in here so we can say what a longer button would look like. And I'm also going to give it 40 because that's the kind of text it's going to be. Like and share. So this is gonna test is gonna be inside of it. We could, in theory, we could make it a little bit bigger as well, and then customize it. So let's do that. Now, let's go back to theming. So there's two things to keep in mind when you're working with theming. You could add it to each individual, or you could add it to main control node, and then if you want to make a specific change into a button, you can then make an theme override. So we're gonna start with a new theme, and today we're gonna be working with button, which is the highest control node for all the buttons, and then we're also gonna be working with the label. Now I'll start with, before we start actually with this, my suggestion would be, if you're working on a game, is to have a color palette. And my pick would be to go to coolers or like whatever program you prefer. I think even Canva has some kind of a color selection. And I would say pick 3 to 4 colors to work with. So I'm gonna remove this, and then we could, let's see. So for my game, I would say let's look up golden hex code. Golden hex code. So for my game, I would say metallic hex code would be good. So this one says D3A. Let's write this here. D3AF37. D3AF37. And then grab this and let's change color. Place it here. And then I'm gonna lock this. And then we press space to roll other color palettes. And the cool part about it is they're gonna be trying to match it with this. And then you try to find what other colors would be fitting inside of your game, basically. So this is very strong, but I would like the blue. No, I don't want gray. I would say these are kind of decent. Let's just roll with this, and then we can start working on it. So you can work with, this one would be background, I would say. So I'm gonna copy the hex code. Then we come back here, control node, you go to the buttons, and you go to creating a style box. So we're gonna be working with the normal, and then from there we're gonna be going to the others. And if you have textures, we can press on the style box texture. And if you don't have textures, you just press the style box flat. Empty just makes it, completely empty. It doesn't add anything. You can just make margins in case if you want to move the text inside of it. But in general, I don't really see an application for empty. But the most useful two are like the texture, if you have textures, and then there's a flat. I haven't really worked with the style box line, but so we're gonna be focusing on style box flat, which is, I would say, arguably is the best way to start learning about UI before you try to use textures. It just allows you to limit test basically. And so we copy that color. I'm gonna be adding it here and go back. And I would say we can grab a lighter color, which would be a highlighter. So inside of this, you can actually add border for what kind of color you want. So I'm gonna be adding this border, and then let's give it 4 pixels each. And I like it to blend, but I also want it to be rounded. So I might make this 12 and 12 on right and 12 on left. And then I'll give 8 corner, which gives it a little bit of a nice shadowing. Could also, I guess we could make the top 12, which gives it, let's give this some 8. as you can always customize and see what fits and play around with it. And as you can see, like the difference between this and between, oh, actually, let me add a channel node. Gonna give it a button, and I'm gonna increase the size so we can always see what a default button looks like while we're working. And how we do that is just by going to theme override and then styles, and where's the normal, and let's just add, well, we don't want it to be empty, we want it to be flat. And I guess this would be how it looks like normally while adding a style box. But yes, these are the ones how it looked like with the theme. Let's see. You can also add expanding margin. You can also add shadowing. Adding a shadow actually looks really nice. So it's black, and let's give it 12. Okay, 12 is actually a lot. Let's need it a little bit 4. And then we can make it go a little bit down so it feels nicer. Yes, now you can see. And this is only we're working on the normal. And then let's say we go to the hover, we copy, paste it. And then on the hover, what I would do usually is I would make the either background lighter or darker when you're trying to hover over it. Also, by the way, we should have when you copy this and paste it here, you have to make this unique before you actually play around with it, because otherwise it's going to be changing on both. So I'm going to be making this a little bit lighter, and that way, let's run this. If you hover over it, it highlights, so you know. Don't bother with this. It's here to support us mentally. If you hover over it, it shows up lighter. And by the way, this depends on like what coloring you want. And I'm kind of just working along with it, trying to see what fits and what I like. And let's pick this last color, and I want to use it as a label. So there's two ways to change the fonts or like the coloring of the fonts. It's either go to the control node, and inside of font settings, you can play around with this. So I'm going to give this 40. So it completely changes on all of them. And this makes it so 40 is the standard. Can we get 20? Or you could change it directly inside of each UI element, each control node. And for me, the coloring also, you have to change it to each on its own. So if I come here, we can do the font color and add that font color. You see, it looks pretty decent. Now, there's one thing left that I would like to try actually, is the golden metallic. Since we have it, we might as well play around with the background of the normal. So rather than having a dark shadow, we can do a metallic shadow. But we give it a little bit of this. Doesn't look that bad. It doesn't look good either, actually. But yes, that's in general how we do it with theming. And I would really genuinely suggest you find the colors that fit with you or like fit with your ideas, and then you play around with it, see what works best, and then you can expand from there. And this is on the button, and this is using style box flat. You could do it with a lot of different stuff. So I would say instead of pressed, you will be adding another style box as well. And yeah, that's kind of it. If you guys are, I'm gonna be doing now a speed work of how I want the UI to look for my game, and I will see you guys next time. If you have any questions or stuff you want me to make a little bit more focused video on, I would love to hear your opinion. This is the Majestic, and peace out.